In 1650, behind walls taller than cathedrals, the most powerful man on earth ruled in absolute silence. Inside Beijing's Forbidden City, a single whispered command could decide life or death for hundreds of millions. What truly happened behind these crimson gates? In 1650, Beijing stood at the center of the largest unified state on earth. The Qing dynasty, founded only 6 years earlier after the Manchu conquest of the Ming capital in 1644, ruled a territory stretching from Manchuria to southern China, encompassing more than 150 million people. At the heart of this vast empire rose the Forbidden City, a walled complex of more than 900 buildings, built to embody absolute imperial authority. It was not simply a royal residence, but the administrative and ritual core of Qing power, where laws were issued, tribute was received, and loyalty was enforced. From its vermilion gates, a foreign-born Manchu court governed one of history's oldest civilizations, blending inherited Ming institutions with their own military and political control, creating a system that inspired both awe and deep unspoken fear. In 1650, the Qing emperor was not a powerful adult ruler, but a 7-year-old child. The Shunji emperor had inherited the throne after his father, the Manchu ruler Hong Taiji, died in 1643, just months before Qing armies seized Beijing from the collapsing Ming dynasty. Because Shunji was too young to govern, real authority rested with a group of Manchu regents, most notably Prince Dorgan, whose armies had led the conquest of China. Although Shunji lived inside the Forbidden City and was formally recognized as the Son of Heaven, decisions about war, taxation, and administration were made by senior Manchu nobles who controlled the military and bureaucracy. The Qing court projected imperial stability, but behind the throne, power was fragmented, contested, and still rooted in conquest rather than tradition. By 1650, the Forbidden City functioned as a tightly regulated political organism rather than a simple royal residence. More than 10,000 people lived and worked inside its walls, including imperial relatives, court officials, palace women, eunuchs, guards, scribes, and craftsmen. Every movement followed strict protocol inherited from the Ming and reinforced by Qing rule. Access to the emperor was controlled through layers of bureaucracy, with written memorials, sealed reports, and scheduled audiences dictating how information flowed. Eunuchs served as gatekeepers to the inner palace, while Manchu bannermen guarded every gate and courtyard. The complex housed archives, treasuries, ritual halls, and administrative offices, all designed to ensure that orders issued from the throne were recorded, transmitted, and enforced without challenge. In this closed world, power did not move freely. It traveled along prescribed channels, monitored at every step. The Qing court in 1650 operated under constant internal surveillance, a legacy of its violent rise to power. After the conquest of Beijing, Manchu leaders faced the risk of rebellion from both former Ming officials and rival Manchu nobles. Prince Dorgan maintained control through purges, investigations, and forced loyalty oaths, using the censorate and palace intelligence networks to monitor officials. Accusations of disloyalty often led to imprisonment, exile, or execution, sometimes without public trial. Even senior ministers could be removed overnight if suspected of plotting or corruption. Inside the Forbidden City, written reports and secret denunciations circulated daily, creating an atmosphere where caution was essential for survival. This system discouraged open disagreement and ensured that political authority remained concentrated in a small circle around the regency. Order was maintained not only through law, but through the constant awareness that imperial favor could vanish without warning. The Qing dynasty in 1650 was still a foreign regime ruling a predominantly Han Chinese population. The Manchus, who came from the northeast beyond the Great Wall, had conquered China through military force, not popular support. To secure their rule, they preserved many Ming administrative systems while placing Manchu elites in key positions of power. The eight-banner system ensured that the Qing military remained loyal to the ruling house, while Chinese scholar officials continued to run local government under imperial supervision. Cultural tension was constant. Policies such as the mandatory Manchu hairstyle, the shaved forehead, and queue became symbols of submission to Qing authority. Within the Forbidden City, Manchu language, rituals, and traditions dominated court life, even as the rulers relied on Chinese bureaucrats to manage the empire. This uneasy balance allowed the Qing to govern a civilization far older and larger than their own culture. Qing rule depended not only on military strength, but on the ancient Chinese belief that emperors governed through the mandate of heaven. In 1650, the Shunji emperor, though a child, was formally recognized as the son of heaven, the only figure allowed to communicate between the human and cosmic realms. Inside the Forbidden City, elaborate rituals governed nearly every aspect of court life, from seasonal sacrifices to daily court ceremonies. Astronomers, astrologers, and ritual specialists advised the throne on omens, eclipses, and calendar dates, which were believed to reflect heaven's approval or displeasure. By performing these rites according to tradition, the Qing sought to legitimize their foreign rule over China. Success in ritual was treated as proof that heaven had accepted the Manchu dynasty as China's rightful rulers, even though their conquest was recent and deeply contested. By 1650, the Qing emperor's understanding of his own empire was shaped almost entirely by reports prepared by court officials, memorials from provincial governors, military commanders, and tax administrators were filtered through layers of clerks, censors, and senior ministers before reaching the throne. This system was designed to manage information, but it also allowed manipulation. Officials often softened bad news or emphasized successes to protect their positions. Local rebellions, corruption, and food shortages could be delayed or reframed by the time they reached Beijing. The young Shunji emperor rarely saw raw reports or dissenting voices. Instead, his view of China was constructed by the bureaucracy surrounding him. The Forbidden City created the illusion of total knowledge, yet the emperor was physically and politically isolated from the realities faced by millions of his subjects beyond the palace walls. Despite the rigid order projected from Beijing, Qing authority in 1650 was far from absolute. Large regions of southern China were still unstable, and remnants of the Ming loyalist movement continued to resist Manchu rule. Former Ming generals such as Zheng Zhilong and his son Zheng Chenggong, later known as Koxinga, controlled powerful coastal forces, while peasant uprisings flared in inland provinces weakened by war and taxation. Grain shortages and disrupted trade created pressure that imperial edicts could not easily resolve. From the Forbidden City, officials issued confident proclamations of unity and peace, but enforcement depended on distant armies and fragile local administrations. The empire appeared solid at its center, yet its stability rested on continuous military presence and political compromise. Behind the ceremonial grandeur of Qing rule, China in 1650 remained a land recovering from decades of conquest, famine, and internal conflict. Although the Shunji emperor lived in unmatched luxury, his life inside the Forbidden City was highly restricted. From childhood, he followed a rigid schedule of lessons, rituals, and supervised activities, with little personal freedom. Court tutors instructed him in Confucian texts, Manchu traditions, and the responsibilities of imperial rule. Every interaction was observed by officials tasked with protecting both his authority and the dynasty's interests. Even family relationships were regulated by protocol, and emotional attachments were discouraged. The emperor could not travel freely, speak openly, or form friendships outside the court. His physical world was limited to palace halls, gardens, and ceremonial spaces, while decisions about governance were often made by regents and ministers. This separation created a paradox at the heart of Qing rule. The most powerful figure in the empire was also one of its most controlled and isolated individuals. The political system taking shape in Beijing in 1650 laid the foundation for nearly 3 centuries of Qing rule. The combination of Manchu military power, Confucian bureaucracy, and ritual legitimacy allowed the dynasty to stabilize China after decades of collapse and war. Over time, this structure would expand Qing territory to its greatest historical size and create long periods of internal peace. Yet, it also embedded deep weaknesses. The separation between the court and the wider population, the reliance on filtered information, and the suppression of dissent made the system slow to adapt when new crises emerged. Many of these patterns would later contribute to Qing decline in the 19th century. The Forbidden City in 1650 was not only the center of an empire, but the blueprint of a political order that shaped modern Chinese history long after the Manchu banners faded from its gates.